Good morning, guys. Welcome back to Morgan Hill Farms. So this morning I am down in our peach tree and blueberry area here. I came down to take a look at how everything is going down here, and everything is looking beautiful, and I'm really excited for some great harvests this year. So you can see these trees behind me, these are about 3 years old. We put these in as soon as we got to the property. So they are really getting large now, and we've been pruning them and taking care of them, and we should be getting a great harvest off of these guys. You can see that they are starting to leaf out, as well as there are still some blossoms on them. So the blossoms come first, and we always typically get a late frost here after our blooms come out, and that will kill your peach harvest. And so I'm always worried about that. But this year we have been so incredibly warm. In fact, our nighttime temperatures are in the 50s and 60s, and I don't see anything on the radar showing that we're even going to get another frost. And we are still a good 2 to 3 weeks out from our average last frost date. So it's pretty unusual, but I am really happy to say that we're probably going to get a great harvest this year. But this is the time when insects become a huge problem for fruit trees. So as soon as the petals fall off, there are small little fruits that are starting to develop here, and you have a lot of insects that will get into that fruit, lay their eggs, and then during the season the larvae will start to develop and they'll eat the fruit from the inside. If you don't get that, you can also get other insects that are eating the fruit from the outside. So you really have to manage these trees with a good spray schedule. Now you can use something like neem oil if you want to go organic, or you can use your traditional chemical pesticides, whatever you're comfortable with. But you really need to do something unless you're going to use fruit bags to put on each individual fruit and stop those insects from getting them. Now, as far as the blueberries go, you can see that these guys are looking beautiful as well. They have a bunch of little blooms. All of those are going to turn into little blueberries for me. You can see that the leaves are nice and green also, and that is something that you want to pay attention to with your blueberries. If you notice that your blueberry leaves are any color other than green, most likely you have an acidity problem. Blueberries like a very low pH or a very acidic soil, sometimes even down to 4.5% on that pH scale. And leaves that are not green indicate that your plant can't take up the nutrients that it needs, because it needs that acidic soil in order to take up all of the nutrition so that it can form your blueberries. So I would recommend, if you see that, definitely get some agricultural sulfur on that. You can get that at Tractor Supply, or perhaps you could use a fertilizer for acid-loving plants, something like Hollytone Azalea Food that has sulfur in it along with fertilizer. We do put that down about 3 times a year, that with the agricultural sulfur at different times during the year, and we have been able to successfully get our pH to the right level, and our blueberry plants last year just gave us an amazing crop, and we're hoping for the same this year. But one thing that we love to do here is we love to save money. So if you can believe it, these peach trees, as well as all of these blueberry bushes, cost me only 6 cents a piece. When we moved to this property in July of 2021, that fall we had gone down to the Lowe's Garden Center, and they were having a great clearance sale on all of the things that they couldn't sell during the growing season. So I talked to the manager, and we were able to come up with a deal. If I took everything that they had in the store that was on clearance, or in the garden center, I should say, that was on clearance, then he would let me pay $200 and I would take it all. So after breaking everything down, it came out to 6 cents a plant. Now we got peach trees, pear trees, fig trees, we got blueberries, blackberries. We also had to take a good amount of interior plants as well as landscaping plants that were more like your aesthetic plants. They're not going to produce anything for you. But for 6 cents a piece, I could not pass that deal up. Each one of these blueberry plants could have potentially cost me about $33 a piece, and the trees are also around $30 a piece. If you buy those more at a local nursery, you're looking maybe $40 to $50 a tree. So definitely look for those deals. You do not want to be paying full price when you're putting in, large areas like this if you're homesteading and you're wanting to feed your family for a year. It really boggles my mind, when I see people spending so much money. And in fact, one thing that I've been seeing lately, of course it is tax season, is all of these videos showing people that are spending their tax returns and how they are doing it. And it just, I really do enjoy watching those. But people kind of treat tax returns like it's free money from the government. They think that For some reason, you know, by the time April 15th comes around, the government just sends them this check just out of the goodness of its own heart. But really what that is it's money that you've paid in. And people don't realize that. And so they just kind of take it as a free-for-all. You know, I heard one guy kind of refer to it as, man, you know, I saw that money in my bank account and I thought, gosh, I just got a windfall. And I think, no, that's money that you earned, that the government has been holding and earning interest on this whole year. Now, we are getting a tax return here. We try not to, but with the way that Nate's pay structure is, if you get bonuses or anything like that, the government holds 40% of that because they are afraid that you are going to owe them more taxes than what they have, so they want to ensure that they have their money first before they give you back any excess that you may have paid in. So we are definitely getting a tax refund here. But some of the things that people have been saying that they're spending their tax returns on are things like furniture, kitchen remodels. They're taking the kids to Disney. They are, you know, spending $1,000 on spending money while they're on vacation. They're going to take a cruise. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And meanwhile, at the end of these videos, the consistent theme is we live paycheck to paycheck. You know, we should be using this to pay off debt. And I just think, man, I mean, even one girl said, you know, my husband who used to work 45 hours a week, he got his hours cut back to about 25 hours a week on a good week. But our kids deserve a vacation, so we're taking them on vacation, you know, and that's what they're using their tax refund on. And she even went in to say, you know, we owe my brother money because my car broke down a couple of months ago and we couldn't afford that repair. And I think, man, you know, you really should be using your tax return to kind of give yourself a buffer for the coming year. If you need to pay off debt, pay off debt. If you can put it into savings, definitely do that. But if you have a good savings account, most Americans only have $400 in their account, which is just really, really scary to kind of have to operate on in case you have an emergency or something. $400 does not go far these days. But if you have a good savings account, and you also have, you know, taken care of your debt and things like that, I've got some great ideas of what I think you should be spending your tax refund on. And some of the things that we're actually going to be looking into. We, of course, prepare here and we homestead and we try to feed our family for the year off of what we produce, as well as we just like to be generally prepared. So one of the things that I would suggest doing is a 72-hour kit. So they have the pre-made ones, but I really like the ones that you make yourself because you kind of know your kids and your family best. You know what to put in there, what snacks, what games, you know, things to keep people, you know, occupied in a difficult situation, life straws, things like that. But you can also get the pre-made ones. Also, those medical kits, the ones that come with antibiotics and different types of medicines. There is Jace. I have heard of other ones that are a bit more cost effective, but definitely tailor that to what you need. So if there's a certain penicillin that you are allergic to, don't get that type of antibiotic. Ladies, if you have, you know, yeast issues, you know, get a few extra pills of diflucan. Pills really last for a long time. I know that there are expiration dates on them, but most of the time it's just decreasing the effectiveness of that drug. There are the occasional ones that do become toxic over time, but just look into that. There are really not a lot of those. Another thing that I would say to do with your tax refund, if you need it, is to get some preserving equipment. If you don't have a good pressure canner, all American pressure canners are a bit pricey, but they will last for generations. You will pass that down to your kids and they will pass it down to their kids. Maybe a food dehydrator is something that you don't have and you want to get a nicer version of one of those, one with the fan in the back that evenly dehydrates the food as opposed to the cheaper ones that have the fans on the top. Maybe you want to get into the realm of freeze drying. We don't have one of those here. That is still just a little too rich for my pocketbook. And I think, you know, people preserved food for hundreds and hundreds of years, you know, before the home freeze dryer came to be. But someday maybe I'll get one of those. But if that's something that you guys are dreaming of and it's going to make you more successful in your journey to, you know, being prepared and stuff, definitely look into that. Also, along with that food preservation equipment, is there a new skill that you're starting to learn? Cheese making, maybe, something like that. Sometimes that equipment can get expensive. So if you can order that along with some cultures and things because you know that your animals are going to be coming into milk soon or something like that and you want to get going on that. Something we like to do here is we really like to stock up on lumber, fence posts, T-posts. That is something we have all over this property, are just hundreds and hundreds of T-posts. That and cattle panel, hog panel, I think Tractor Supply actually has those on sale right now. You can use cattle panel for a variety of things. You can use it to enclose your animals. You can use it for trellises. You can use it for gates. You can use it for fencing. There are so many different things that you can use that for. So those are some things that I would also stock up on. Now let's talk about something that you could do for your home to make yourself a little bit more comfortable in some emergency situations. So, do you have a generator? So when Helene came through here, we were without power for almost 2 weeks. Some people were without power longer than that, and of course up in the mountains, they probably are still facing issues up there. But we had a generator, and we have it set up where we actually have a plug that we can plug that generator into outside, and it back feeds our panel. So we had an electrician come and do that, and so we can just kind of flip whatever switch we want. If I want the living room to run, if I want the kitchen to run, if I want the laundry room with the washer and dryer to run, or an AC system to run, I can just go ahead and just flip those switches, and that generator will only power what I'm letting it do. We mostly use that for our freezers because we found that within 12 hours, those freezers were starting to defrost. So that's something. So the generator, maybe that backup or that plug that goes into your house. Maybe you have a dual fuel generator that can run on propane. Have you thought about getting some extra propane tanks? Those can get pretty pricey. Right now, a 120-pound propane tank, the bigger ones that kind of, stand a bit tall, those are around $1,000 a piece. But think about it, if you had that plug in and you had that propane tank right near one another, you just set your generator outside, you plug it in, you hook the hose up, and you're good to go. So that's a great way to go too. If you have a little bit more money coming back, maybe you could look into some solar options, a solar generator, maybe solar power for your house, or maybe even a whole house generator. Those things can go a long way to giving you a little bit of extra time to get things out of your freezers before they start to thaw. So obviously I wouldn't be able to use my generator for long term. One, it's really noisy. Two, eventually you're going to run out of fuel, and those items in my freezer are going to start to thaw out. But if I start right away and I start to preserve that food and get that canned up, that generator is going to help me with my time frame. It's going to give me a little bit more time to deal with those items. Now, what about gardening stuff? Would you maybe want to build a few new garden beds or buy some new garden beds? One thing that Nate and I have been talking about is that we have 56 raised beds as well as our in-ground garden, but the raised beds were made out of fence pickets, and eventually those are going to break down. We probably have a few more years left in those. We're on year number 3 at this point, but we probably have a couple more years before we really start to see those kind of rot and split and break apart. And so we're talking about maybe replacing those with a galvanized style metal bed that has a lifetime warranty or something that's supposed to last a lifetime. But those can get very expensive. So maybe if you buy a few this year and then next year you buy a few and you just kind of keep yourself on track. Also seeds. Emergency seeds, garden tools. I love to have a variety of garden tools. Now, don't get me wrong, I love wood handles, I love those traditional garden tools, but if you leave those down in your garden, those are going to start to rot and they're going to start to break apart. The fiberglass ones, you can leave those out all season and those tools are going to last. Even though I really like wood and I really like more of the natural type stuff, fiberglass might be the way to go for that. Also, have you thought about microgreens for this upcoming winter? I know we're just getting into spring, but it's not too early to think about this. Microgreens. So you don't need a crazy setup for that, but there are some things you need. Some really low trays. You're going to need just some grow lights for that. I just use shop lights with a specific Kelvin rating. Anything between 5,000 Kelvin to about 7,000 Kelvin will do just fine. You can get those at Lowe's or at Walmart. Don't buy expensive grow lights. But anyways, growing microgreens through the winter can give you such great nutritional value, and they last forever in your fridge. They grow within 7 to 10 days. Some of them are even quicker than that. And some of them you can cut and they will grow again. So look into that if that's something that you're thinking about supplementing your family with. Maybe you're thinking along the lines of building something on your property. Do you need a new chicken coop? Do you want an outdoor preserving kitchen? I know I do. My kitchen is not made for anybody who even cooks dinner on a regular basis. There's not a lot of counter space. There's just not a lot of functionality in there. I would love an outdoor preserving kitchen. Do you need a garden shed? Do you need a storage area? Does your well need a new well house to insulate it and things like that? Those are also some things that you could spend your money on that would be, you know, very useful. Also, you know, there's always assets. There's gold, there's silver if you want to go that route. Also protective equipment, if you catch my drift. That can get pretty pricey too. That and of course the supplies to go with it, because you can't use those without something else. But if you catch my drift, you could also go that route with your stuff. Or, you know, kind of look around, see what it is that your preps are lacking on. You know, maybe you haven't really thought about water. Maybe you don't have water purification tablets. Maybe you don't have life straws. Maybe you don't have a water filtration system that you can use in case of an emergency. Those Berkey water containers, I know there's a lot of controversy on those with the filters and things like that, but something along those lines to purify your water if you ever needed it. We have a spring-fed creek here that runs along our property, and I can tell you in the summertime that water gets pretty nasty. I probably wouldn't want to drink it, but if you threw that into one of those water filters, man, I mean, it takes 99.99% of everything out of that water, and it comes out crystal clean. I've watched these videos where they're in Africa and taking this disgusting water and they turn it into something completely safe and completely drinkable, and it's pretty amazing. So maybe that's something that you want to look into. But anyways, guys, those are just some ideas that I have for you, some ways that you could maybe spend your tax return in a little bit more of a responsible way if you've paid off your debt and you have some good savings, and you just want to increase your security that you have and increase your preparedness and things like that. Now, I'm sure I missed a bunch of stuff, but yeah, just kind of look through your stuff, see where you're lacking, see what it is that you want to buy or need to buy. And this stuff can get pretty pricey, so definitely look for some good deals. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day.